As much of the country has been sheltering in place, many have been looking for a little extra company. And as a result, animal shelters have seen a major spike in adoptions. Adoptions in some cities have gone up as much as 70%. And one shelter in Taunton even ran out of dogs and cats altogether. But it's not all good news. As coronavirus cases and deaths continue to rise in the state, shelters expect to see more and more pets surrenders too. Director of Adoption Centers and Programs at MSPCA, Mike Keiley, joins me now. Mike, who have you got there?
This is my dog, Franny. So much like all of us, we need some comfort and companionship during this time of isolation. So she's my isolation buddy.
So she's not up for adoption. She's already been adopted.
No, she's already found her family with us.
So MSPCA, have you seen a tremendous spike in the number of adoptions there too?
Yeah, absolutely. We've definitely seen a huge increase, and I think it's because people are certainly responding to our message that homeless animals still need to find wonderful families during this time. And some people have a little bit more time on their hands to be able to welcome an animal into their home. So we've seen an incredible increase. We saw a 20% spike right off the bat when at the start of this, and we've seen continued success with adoptions throughout.
And what about the number of surrenders? Have they gone up to people who, for one reason or another, if they had to give up the dog or the cat or the animal because someone in their family is sick or they're sick or, God forbid, somebody died?
They haven't yet. It's actually been surprising. Our intake is a little bit down at this point, and we're anticipating that has a lot to do with the idea that people want to have companionship during this time, and if they don't have an emergency need to surrender an animal, they're holding off. And they're a little bit afraid to go out if they can avoid it. So I think a lot of the surrenders that we typically would see this time of year are delayed. Yeah. I think the other thing that's important is we've also been able to have support systems in place to be able to help people stay with their pets when financial needs or medical needs are a barrier.
Well, that's the next question I was going to get at, because people are just manic about taking their pets to the vet for, ear infections, I had a dog for 14 years, so I know it's just never ending. Are people still doing that, or are they nervous about bringing their pets in for obvious reasons?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of both. I think our main goals here are to keep animals safe during this time and to keep them with their families. So we're providing primarily emergency medical care. Our adoption center clinics, which typically offer spay-neuter to the public at an affordable rate, because we're not doing spay-neuter right now to allow PPE to be used for humans, we've shifted gears and we're providing affordable medical care for those families that are financially strapped during this time. So if somebody has an injury or an emergency and they can't normally afford it, we're providing access to affordable resources through our clinics instead.
So it's not dangerous to wait to spay an animal. If they usually do it at 6 months, but it's okay to wait.
Right. I think there are certainly things that that can become dangerous, like an emergency pyometra, which is a uterine infection, things like that. We're still helping with those situations, but routine spay and neuter that can be delayed, we are delaying.
Okay, so here's the big thing that everybody wants to know. Can they carry the coronavirus? We saw that story last night. I was watching one of the network newscasts that 2 tigers, and I think it was the Bronx Zoo, tested positive for coronavirus. I don't know if they were symptomatic or how they even knew that, but they did. What about other animals? Can they test positive, and can you get it from a pet?
Well, I think that last part is the most important part. There is no evidence at this point that you can get coronavirus from your pet. So I think that's the part that people are concerned about when they hear those reports. But there still is no evidence. The coronavirus that they're talking about that with the cats in New York and the tigers is a form of SARS corona, which is the precursor to COVID-19. And really the concern is that they can spread it from animal to animal. So your cat, if it were to contract corona in the way that we're talking about it, could give it to another cat, but not to a human. So it gets a little bit confusing, but people shouldn't worry at this point. With all the information we have, there's no reason to worry that your pet is going to give you coronavirus.
Because the other thing that people are nervous about, all right, me. I used to grab every dog on the street. I live in downtown, and, especially bulldogs. I love bulldogs. Now I am hesitant to touch somebody else's pet or dog because, not just because the animal might be, but because the person, touched the dog. I mean, can you pick up something from somebody else's pet off their fur?
Yeah, it's another great question. We use the term fomite for this, so carrying it on the skin or on the fur, and that's not a good transmission for COVID. So it's really that's not a concern at this point. Obviously we're still learning a lot as we go, and so there's always precaution that we only know so much at this point. And so there's with this information, there's other recommendations that CDC are making, like walk your dog on a leash and stay 6 feet away from other people and animals. And, I think there's general precautions we can all take as we learn more. But right now, I think the comfort and companionship animals give to us is going to far outweigh any concerns about coronavirus transmission. And the number one transmission is humans still.
I've seen some funny stories about the behavior of pets with so many people at home. Friend of mine has a puppy, and the dog won't let one family member out of its sight, just follows her every single step everywhere. Normally she'd be at work all day, and that wouldn't be happening. Right. And the other friend has a cat who seems just positively annoyed that the owner is there because they're used to being home alone,
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's important for us to recognize that as we go through this, that there's things we can do to make sure our animals are happy, and we're providing behavior resources virtually now through our adoption centers. So people can take this time to work on some training that maybe they don't have time with dogs that pull on leash or jump up on you. There's a lot of positive things we can do with this time that we do have if we're home to work on behaviors we may or may not like. But I agree, cats want us out the door, and dogs want us to stay home all the time.
It's interesting. I run into a lot of people who are in the dog walking business. Normally they've got 12, sometimes they could have 18 dogs in one batch walking down the street. But I talked to one woman who said that business is way, way down because people are at home walking their own pets, or they're nervous for one reason or another to hand the dog off to somebody else, because they won't. Yeah,
absolutely. And it is a good time to really solidify that bond with your pet if you do have it. But I do feel bad for any businesses that might be impacted by it.
Mm-hmm. So what do you see going forward in terms of the adoption business? Do you think this will start a new trend? Because, so many, we hate to talk about what really happens, but not all these animals make it if they're not adopted.
Yeah, I think that there has been an incredible push towards adoption rather than purchasing a puppy or a cat. And so I think that trend is fantastic. And I think the positive thing for animal welfare is that we are innovating. We're doing different things. Like our adoption center usually relies on people walking through to make a bond and a connection with an animal. We've had to do something different. We innovated and adapted on the fly, and now we're doing live virtual tours on Facebook to help people meet animals in a different manner, and it's worked out really well. So I think that trend will continue, and I think what we see in every crisis is that our community comes together to help animals and people that are in need. So we're really touched by that.
All right, Mike, thanks. I almost pulled the trigger on a rescue bulldog, but I thought, what am I doing? I can't have a dog, not at this point. I wanted to, though.
If I can tempt you, I'll send you some emails of some cute dogs.
All right, thanks. Gee, thanks. All right, Mike, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.